Officer Miguel Alvarez had patrolled the same rough patch of the city for nearly 7 years, always on a night shift. He knew every crack in the pavement, every broken street lamp, and every corner where shadows moved a little too quickly. That evening felt off, too quiet, even for this part of town. The kind of silence that made instincts twitch. Still, habit called. He pulled into his usual spot beside a graffiti-tagged bench wedged between a closed-down auto shop and an overgrown lot. The sun dipped low behind the warehouses, smearing orange across the broken windows. Miguel leaned back in his seat, exhaled deeply, and reached for his dinner. Something simple, wrapped in foil, still warm. He always ate here, same time, same place. It wasn't scenic, but it was consistent. In a world full of unpredictability, that consistency felt like peace. As he unwrapped the sandwich and took his first bite, he had no idea someone was watching him. That's when Miguel saw him. A dog, if you could still call him that. More bone than muscle, coat clumped with dried mud, patches of fur missing like forgotten memories. His ribs jutted out beneath the skin, sharp enough to count. He didn't make a sound. No bark, no growl, no pitiful whimper that most strays resorted to. He just stood there, a few feet away from a bench, motionless except for the subtle rise and fall of his frail chest. Miguel paused mid-bite, sandwich halfway to his mouth. The dog's eyes met his, dark, deep, and strangely calm. Not desperate, not wild, just waiting. And in that quiet stare, Miguel saw something more human than he expected. The eyes didn't plead, but they held a question. One not spoken, not barked, but felt. A question that had probably lived inside that dog for weeks, maybe months, rehearsed silently under bridges and behind dumpsters. Can I eat with you? Miguel didn't move at first. Years on this beat had taught him that most strays in the neighborhood were either scared stiff or dangerously aggressive, cornered souls with nothing to lose. But this one was different. The dog didn't pace or growl. He simply sat a few feet away, posture straight, tail still, eyes steady. There was a strange dignity in him, like he understood this was someone else's space and he was asking, silently, respectfully, to share it. Miguel slowly lowered his sandwich, then unwrapped it further. After a brief hesitation, he tore it in half and held the piece out, his hand low and still. The dog didn't charge or snatch. He rose with a quiet grace, approached slowly, and gently took the food from Miguel's hand. No snapping jaws, no frantic desperation, just hunger held in patient control. He laid down beside the bench, turned slightly away, and ate, chewing slowly, almost reverently. Miguel watched, struck by the silence between them. There was no barking, no begging, no noise at all. Just two souls sharing a meal under the fading city sky. As they sat side by side beneath the dim glow of the streetlight, Miguel glanced down at the dog, quietly chewing his half of the sandwich. There was something almost reverent in the way the animal ate. No rush, no greed, just slow, careful bites. Miguel smiled and spoke in a soft voice, not expecting an answer. "You got a name, boy?" The dog paused for a moment, lifting his head slightly. His eyes met Miguel's with a depth that caught him off guard, eyes that seemed to remember something distant. A name, perhaps once whispered by a kind voice now long gone. He didn't wag his tail in excitement. He didn't bark. He simply looked, as if the question stirred something he couldn't quite reach anymore. Miguel knew feeding strays wasn't protocol, technically against apartment policy, but this didn't feel like breaking rules. It felt like fulfilling a quiet promise. When the meal ended, Miguel crumpled the foil and stood to leave. The dog didn't move. He lay there beside the bench, eyes half closed, tail giving one slow, lazy twitch, not out of fear or obligation, but peace. He wasn't just full. He felt safe. The next evening, Miguel returned to his usual spot, and there he was, the dog. Same place, same posture, same silent eyes. He emerged from the alley just before sunset, as if he knew the schedule by heart. Miguel had brought an extra sandwich this time, hoping he would come back. Without a word, he unwrapped both and placed one on the bench beside him. The dog approached, calm as ever, accepted the offering, and laid down at Miguel's feet like he belonged there all along. And then he came again the next night, and the next. It became a ritual, unspoken, consistent, peaceful. Miguel started talking to him in quiet tones, telling him about his day, about the people he arrested, the calls he answered, the city he no longer trusted. The dog never replied, but he listened, always listening. People in the neighborhood began to notice. Some smiled as they passed. Others left scraps along the wall. But the dog never begged. He waited, ate only what was given, like he had pride stitched into every bone of his broken body. One cold night, with the air biting and clouds heavy with rain, Miguel sat on the bench with more than just sandwiches. From the passenger seat of his cruiser, he pulled out a simple blue leash. Nothing fancy, just enough to mean safety, warmth, a new beginning. He unwrapped the food, placed it on the bench, and held the leash gently in his hand. When the dog appeared, just as he always did, Miguel smiled and spoke softly. "You want to come with me, buddy? Somewhere warmer." The dog paused, his ears twitching. He stepped forward, drawn by the familiar voice and the promise in it. For a heartbeat, it felt like this would be the moment. But then he stopped, just a few feet away. He looked at Miguel, then glanced back toward the dark alley from where he came. Something invisible tugged at him. Fear, memory, habit, maybe all three. He lingered in silence, then, without warning, turned and vanished into the shadows. Miguel waited. That night, and the next, but no paw steps came. Rain began to fall. The bench stayed empty. Days passed. Still no sign. A week later, the storm finally came, the kind that made sirens wail and power lines tremble. Miguel was halfway through his shift when a call came over the radio. A resident had heard whining behind an old pawn shop. Something trapped, possibly a dog. The dispatcher's voice was casual, but Miguel's heart jumped. Without hesitation, he flipped on the lights and sped through flooded streets, windshield wipers barely keeping up with the downpour. When he arrived, he didn't wait for backup. He sprinted through ankle-deep water to the back of the building. The shed had collapsed. Rain rotted with splintered and scattered like bones. Then he heard it, a soft, strained whimper beneath the rubble. Miguel dropped to his knees and peered into the wreckage. And there he was, soaked to the bone, eyes wide with pain and fear, one paw pinned beneath a heavy beam. The same dog, his dog. Miguel didn't hesitate. With bare hands and adrenaline burning in his veins, he lifted the debris piece by piece, ignoring the sting of splinters. Finally, he freed him, cradling the shivering dog in his arms like a child, whispering, "I got you, buddy. I got you." At the vet's clinic, the diagnosis was sobering. Malnourished, dehydrated, bruised, and with a sprained paw. But the vet also said something else. Asterisk, he's a fighter. Asterisk, Miguel didn't think twice. Every treatment, every injection, every scan, he paid for it all without blinking. He sat beside the dog during recovery, gently stroking his head and talking to him like an old friend. He finally gave him a name, Shadow, because he had followed quietly, faithfully, even when no one saw. In the weeks that followed, Shadow healed. Slowly but surely. When he was strong enough, Miguel brought him back. Not to the alley, but to the streets he now patrolled officially. Shadow walked with purpose, wearing a little black vest with bold letters, Asterisk Community K-9 partner. Asterisk the neighborhood noticed. Kids waved. Elders nodded. People began calling out to him by name. Shadow didn't cower anymore. And when Miguel returned to the old bench, unwrapped his sandwich, Shadow sat right beside him, calm, proud, and certain. No hesitation. No silent question. He no longer had to ask, Asterisk, can I eat with you? Asterisk, he already knew. He belonged.